We will solve this case no matter how long it takes.
The FBI has some new clues to the fatal bombing at the World Trade Center. We'll have a complete report tonight from the scene. It's a standoff after the shootout between federal agents and members of a well-armed religious cult. 4 agents are among the dead. And Eye on America. Tonight, it could be the SNL scandal of the 90s, bailing out underfunded pension funds.
They owe me money. They robbed me. I look on it as being robbed.
This is the CBS Evening News. Good evening, Dan Rather reporting. It's the question everyone's asking tonight: who planted the bomb that killed 5 and injured more than 1,000 at the World Trade Center here in New York? Well, it is just possible that the bomber may have been captured by a camera. CBS News correspondent Scott Pelley has the latest on progress in the search for clues and answers.
Today, investigators revealed there is a videotape of vehicles entering the World Trade Center garage before Friday's explosion. The tape, made by security cameras, is now being screened for a vehicle large enough to carry the massive bomb.
We believe it had to be a large, heavy bomb, possibly one that would test the springs of any car or any van.
Sources close to the investigation tell CBS News that early evidence suggests the bomb was made of an unsophisticated explosive, possibly a combination of nitrate chemical fertilizer, dynamite, and gasoline, a mix often used by terrorists.
The great virtue of using this stuff is that it's readily accessible and it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere.
And potent enough to make it the biggest bombing in U.S. history.
We can compare this to the devastation with the American Embassy in Beirut, and certainly it can be compared with the bombing of the Marine Battalion Landing Team headquarters in Beirut.
Investigators will try to reconstruct part of the garage, similar to the work done on Pan Am Flight 103. Some agents who helped reconstruct this plane are now working on the Trade Center case.
Once this is all done, what are you going to have?
It probably will be a small quantity of evidence, but in some of the experience we've had in smaller devices particularly, we've been able to piece back the device almost in total.
Other investigators are looking into motive. The day the World Trade Center was bombed was the 2nd anniversary of Iraq's retreat from Kuwait. If this was terrorism, many experts suspect the Middle East.
When you think of motive, and when you think of people who have the capability to do this kind of bombing, the access to operatives capable of carrying out this bombing, Iran and Iraq come to mind.
Late this evening, one source close to the investigation told CBS News that witnesses have described a truck leaving the parking garage at a high rate of speed at the time of the explosion. The truck was moving so fast, the source said, it was banging into things on the way out. The witnesses apparently have described the truck as riding so high on its springs that the top of the truck impacted the ceiling of the parking garage as it sped away. Investigators are now wondering whether the truck was rigged to carry a very heavy load and whether that load was left in the World Trade Center parking garage. Dan?
Scott Pelley live at the World Trade Center. Thanks. Now, a short while ago, I joined the head of the FBI's New York office just outside Ground Zero at the World Trade Center. And James Fox told me that while it's slow going, including the fact that the scene is not even to the point where investigators can dig very much through the debris for clues, that there is some progress. He says there are a number of promising leads already.
You heard a lot about the phone calls that came in right after the blast claiming credit. I think it's up to 60 phone calls now. A lot of phone calls also came in offering help. People that were right here.
Can you give me an example without giving something away?
They saw cars, for instance, that were drivers and vehicles that were behaving strangely, people who were behaving strangely.
Now, is it true that there are at least fairly good records on license plates in the parking garage, or is that just speculation?
Fortunately, the parking garage kept fairly thorough records of all entries and exits, and those are going to be extremely helpful. That was a real break for us. There were in excess of 200 cars in the garage at the time of the blast. We think we know almost all of the license plates, including those cars that left just before the blast.
Yeah, that's a terrific break, isn't it?
It really is, and thank God that we have that. Without that, we'd really be starting much further back than we are. This is a head start for us.
In the initial reporting, there was a lot of emphasis placed on, got to be a terrorist act. Where do you come out as of today on that?
We aren't making that jump even today, 3 days after the blast.
Is this a new day for America, as some of the newspapers have written, that things will never be the same again after this?
I'm not ready to say it's a new day at all. We have no indication that this is the first in a series of terrorist incidents targeted at the United States. I don't believe we have to close our borders, close our buildings, close our society. That would be the wrong thing to do. That would be giving a victory to the terrorists.
There are millions of things you don't know. What's your concern right now?
Our immediate concern is the copycat people, the weirdos that may come out of the woodwork now after they see that something like this is possible. Someone who thinks he gets instructions from God. I tell you, and I say this without hesitation, we will solve this case no matter how long it takes.
Now, that's the kind of bravado you expect from the FBI
and I'm happy to get
law enforcement. But in your own mind, are you absolutely confident you'll catch these people?
Yes, I am. I think I can say without qualification there is no higher priority for all of law enforcement in the United States today than solving this case.
The man in charge at the bomb scene here in New York, James Fox. One intriguing lead Fox told me he's working on, if it turns out the bomb was, as some say, a mix of fertilizer and fuel and perhaps dynamite and TNT thrown in, it would not be the first time that such a device was used. The same, what law enforcement officers call witch's brew, was used to bomb a military research center at the University of Wisconsin back in the 1960s. Normally, this would be the start of the work week at the World Trade Center, but the 110-story Twin Towers will be closed for repairs for at least a week. And as correspondent Giselle Fernandez reports, even in parts of the Trade Center complex that did reopen today, not much was normal.
It was the first Monday back, but in no way was it business as usual. Thousands of employees scrambled to the financial heart of the city in a state of confusion, determined but apprehensive.
It shakes you up a little bit. What are you going to do?
Traders working half a day were about the only ones allowed back to do business. If they weren't, the economic impact could have been devastating.
This building, or this facility being shut down for any prolonged period of time will throw major disruptions into the pricing of oil, not just nationally, but on an international level.
While the Mercantile Exchange got back up and running, hundreds of employees from the Twin Towers, representing everything from small businesses to some of the world's top financial houses, stood in line in the bitter cold, vying desperately just to get inside their offices and retrieve critical papers. It was chaotic.
Remember, you've got a building with 50,000 employees representing 300 companies.
Frustrated company executives tried to fight the confusion. The shutdown is costing them time and money.
So you're losing about $6,000 to $10,000 a day every day you're out of work?
Of course, yeah, definitely.
Concerned?
Absolutely.
Doing all right?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Great. Listen, we're going to put you guys back in your old home on the 7th floor.
Some of the tower's 50,000 employees were forced to relocate. It's a tough adjustment.
We're sitting at a table here with no files and no computers, and so it'll be much more difficult. But, you know, we'll make adjustments.
And it wasn't much easier for those allowed briefly back inside the towers. Seen their offices for the first time brought back Friday's frightening images.
There's soot all over everything, and the air is acrid. You know, it's I have a terrible taste in my mouth, and I can still feel it all over my skin.
In some places, New York didn't miss a beat.
We're very happy to know that they opened the commodities. And as you see all the boys from over there coming here, you know.
A Trade Center coffee shop shut down Friday, to its surprise, bounced back. And so did the city. A town known for its tenacity is showing its grit once again. Giselle Fernandez, CBS News, New York.
And straight ahead on tonight's CBS Evening News, the latest on another developing story. A religious cult, plenty of gunfire and death in Texas.